The sirens blared as traffic screeched to a halt on the busy Washington, D.C. street. A U.S. Army general, black and wearing her uniform with pride, was being forcibly removed from her car by an officer who had assumed guilt without asking questions. General Angela Hayes gripped the doorframe as Officer Robert Mills shoved her toward the patrol car. "You're under arrest," he barked, his voice loud enough to draw the attention of everyone nearby. Angela's heart pounded. "Officer, I think there's a mistake. I'm General Angela Hayes of the U.S. Army." "You're making a huge error," she said, trying to stay calm despite the chaos around her. The officer ignored her words. His face was red with frustration, and he seemed determined to prove he was right. Bystanders began pulling out their phones, recording the incident. Angela's car door had slammed, and papers scattered across the pavement as the struggle continued. Traffic honked angrily as cars stopped, drivers yelling. Pedestrians froze, shocked to see an officer behaving this aggressively toward a high-ranking military officer. Angela tried to explain her position calmly, but Mills cut her off. "I've got orders. Don't make this harder than it has to be." Angela's mind raced. She could feel the weight of her uniform, the honor of her rank, and the injustice pressing down on her. She knew her only hope was to prove who she was and call the right authority. Just as she reached for her phone in her pocket, a crowd of onlookers shouted, pointing toward a nearby security camera mounted on a building. They were filming everything. "If you're watching this, you're amazing. Please subscribe to my channel." Earlier that day, General Hayes had been attending a meeting at the Pentagon. She had spent hours briefing officers and planning logistics for an important operation. Afterward, she had driven to pick up dinner, expecting a quiet evening. She never imagined she would be wrongly detained in broad daylight, targeted because of the color of her skin. Officer Mills had a reputation for being aggressive and quick to assume the worst. Colleagues had warned him about overstepping boundaries, but he often ignored caution. That afternoon, their paths collided, and Angela had no choice but to act. As she fumbled for her phone, she knew that one call could change everything, or nothing at all. The street was crowded, the cameras rolling, and Officer Mills's grip tightening. Something had to give, and it could happen in the very next moment. Angela's fingers shook as she unlocked her phone. She knew she had to act fast. Officer Mills' grip on her arm was firm, almost painful, and his glare made it clear he wasn't listening to reason. The bystanders murmured, some taking photos, others filming videos. The tension on the street was electric. "General Hayes, put the phone away. You're not calling anyone until I say so," Mills shouted, his tone sharper now. Angela took a deep breath and reminded herself to stay calm. She had trained for high-pressure situations her whole life. This was no different, except the stakes felt much more personal. A man in a nearby suit stepped forward cautiously. "Officer, maybe you should check her identification." "She clearly—" Mills cut him off, raising his voice. "I don't need advice. I know what I'm doing." Angela seized the moment when Mills turned slightly to shout at the crowd. She slipped her phone from her pocket and tapped the number she hoped would reach the Pentagon directly. Her heart raced with fear and anticipation. She whispered into the phone, "This is General Angela Hayes. I am being detained without cause. I need immediate verification." Across the street, a police officer from another unit arrived, alerted by the commotion. He looked at Mills with a questioning gaze, sensing something was wrong. "What's happening here?" he asked. Mills waved him off. "This is under control," he snapped. But Angela's voice carried over, firm and commanding, even as she spoke into the phone. "I am a U.S. Army general. You are detaining me without evidence. Verify my identity immediately." The arriving officer frowned. He could see the chaos unfolding, the uniform, the rank insignia, and the mounting crowd. Even he had doubts about Mills' actions. Just then, a siren wailed closer, and Mills' radio buzzed urgently. His face shifted from anger to confusion. The Pentagon had responded. Someone on the line was confirming Angela's identity. Mills' hands trembled slightly as he realized the mistake he had made. But before he could react, a shout erupted from the crowd. "Look at the camera feed. She's telling the truth." And at that moment, a journalist stepped forward, phone raised, streaming the incident live. The scene went from a tense confrontation to a public spectacle, and Angela knew the next moments would determine whether justice or humiliation won. The live stream from the journalist's phone went viral almost immediately. Viewers across the city, and soon the nation, watched as Officer Mills hesitated, his grip on General Hayes loosening, realizing his mistake was now public. Angela stayed calm, her uniform crisp, her demeanor commanding. Even in that terrifying moment, she radiated authority. A Pentagon officer finally responded on her call. "General Hayes, we verify your identity. You are not to be detained. Officer Mills, stand down immediately." Mills froze. His face drained of color, his hands shaking slightly as the weight of the call hit him. Every bystander, every camera, every phone recording made his error undeniable. Angela took a step back, keeping her voice calm but firm. "Officer Mills, you will release me now. This behavior is unacceptable and will be reported." The arriving officer from another unit stepped closer. "Sir, she's verified. Stand down. Let her go." Mills' eyes darted around. He knew this wasn't just a reprimand waiting for him at headquarters. This was public humiliation on top of disciplinary action. His career, once solid, now teetered on the edge. The crowd erupted in murmurs of approval. Some clapped quietly. Others shouted in support of Angela. The journalist's phone continued streaming, capturing every moment. The story was spreading online faster than anyone could have anticipated. Angela finally removed herself from Mills' reach, taking a deep breath. Her heart still raced, but her mind was sharp. One call to the Pentagon had turned the tables, exposing Mills' unjust actions to the world. However, Angela knew that this incident wouldn't end quietly. Social media was alive with debate, some criticizing Mills, some still doubting her authority. The Pentagon had intervened, but the public scrutiny had just begun. If you're watching this, and you want to see how accountability finally plays out, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications. The story is far from over. Suddenly, a new voice rang out from the crowd. "He's not going to take this lying down." Someone was rushing forward, pointing directly at Mills. Angela's eyes widened. Something told her the confrontation wasn't finished, and the next move could change everything. Angela's eyes followed the shouting man as he surged forward, weaving through the crowd. The tension on the street spiked instantly. Bystanders stepped back, phones raised to capture the unfolding chaos. Angela realized the situation could spiral quickly if she didn't act. Officer Mills stiffened, panic flashing across his face. His authority, already eroded by the Pentagon's verification, seemed fragile now. He took a step back, unsure whether to confront the man or retreat. Angela, maintaining her composure, stepped forward slightly. "Everyone stay calm," she commanded, her voice steady but firm. Her presence was magnetic. People instinctively paused, sensing her leadership even amid danger. The man lunged, trying to grab Mills' badge. Mills swung his arm reflexively, but the arriving backup officer grabbed his shoulder to prevent escalation. Phones captured every movement, the scene becoming more intense by the second. Angela's mind raced. She had faced extreme situations in combat zones, but this was different. The battlefield was now civilian streets, with cameras recording every motion, every misstep. She needed to prevent harm, protect Mills, even though he had wronged her, and control the narrative until authorities could intervene. "Step back," Angela barked, pointing at both men. "This is over. You're both accountable to the law, but violence isn't the answer." The shouting man froze for a split second, the weight of Angela's command stopping him from further aggression. Bystanders murmured, some stepping forward to help calm the tension. Suddenly, a nearby patrol car door slammed open. Two uniformed officers jumped out, weapons holstered but ready. Their arrival added pressure to Mills and the man, and the crowd felt the shift in authority. Mills' face went pale. He realized he was completely exposed, not just to Angela but to everyone watching, including national media. Just as Angela started walking toward the backup officers to explain the situation, a loud horn blared behind her. A delivery truck had lost control in the commotion, careening toward the crowd. Panic erupted instantly. Angela's heart jumped. In an instant, the threat shifted from harassment to real, physical danger. Angela's instincts kicked in immediately. She shouted, "Move! Everyone get back!" People scrambled, phones dropping as they ran for safety. The truck swerved dangerously, tires squealing on the asphalt, heading straight for the crowd. Mills froze in the middle of the street, paralyzed by fear. The man who had lunged earlier tripped backward, narrowly avoiding the front bumper. Angela didn't hesitate. She sprinted toward the truck, waving her arms to warn the driver. Her military training took over, quick assessment, decisive action. Nearby bystanders followed her lead, pulling themselves and others out of harm's way. The backup officers positioned themselves strategically, signaling the driver to slow. The truck fishtailed but gradually came to a stop, mere feet from where people had been standing moments before. Heartbeat slowed, but adrenaline surged through everyone. Angela exhaled sharply, scanning the street. No one was seriously hurt, but the near miss left a heavy silence. People clung to each other, shaken, realizing how close danger had been. Her mind raced, thinking of how quickly a chaotic situation could escalate, especially with officers acting without reason. Officer Mills finally stepped forward, his face pale, hands trembling. I didn't, he trailed off, realizing words could not undo the fear and chaos he had caused. Angela held up her hand, stopping him. You need to understand the consequences of your actions. Today wasn't just about assumptions, it could have ended in tragedy. The crowd had pulled out their phones again, documenting the aftermath. The viral footage had taken on a new level of gravity. A Black U.S. Army general wrongfully detained and nearly caught in a life-threatening situation because of one officer's bias. Just as Angela began to call the Pentagon again to report the escalating incident, her phone buzzed with a new notification. A major news network had picked up the live footage and was streaming it nationwide. Angela's heart sank. She knew that while her safety was momentarily secured, the public exposure would bring scrutiny, debate, and intense pressure. And then, from the corner of the street, she spotted a figure emerging from the shadows, holding a camera rig far larger than any phone, someone intent on turning the story into something much bigger than she anticipated. The figure stepped closer, the camera rig bulky and professional, clearly from a news crew or media outlet ready to broadcast live. Angela's pulse quickened. She had handled combat zones, hostile meetings, and high-pressure operations, but never the glare of public scrutiny in real time, while being wrongly targeted. Officer Mills flinched as the camera pointed directly at him, his face now fully exposed to the nation. His earlier arrogance evaporated, replaced with raw fear. Angela, meanwhile, stood tall, her uniform immaculate, every ounce of her training guiding her posture and actions. "General Hayes," the reporter called, voice amplified. "Can you explain what happened here?" Angela's eyes darted to the Pentagon on speed dial. She realized this was her moment to reclaim authority. Calmly, she raised her phone. "Yes," she said, her voice strong and commanding. "I am General Angela Hayes of the U.S. Army. I was wrongfully detained by this officer, who assumed my guilt without any evidence. Verification has already been confirmed by the Pentagon." The reporter nodded, gesturing toward Mills. "Officer Mills, any comment?" Mills stammered, looking around at the growing crowd and cameras. No words came out. The gravity of his actions, now public, left him speechless. Angela turned her attention to the onlookers. Everyone filming, recording, or sharing this footage, know this. Assumptions based on race or appearance are dangerous. Accountability is essential. Her words rippled through the crowd and cameras alike, and social media notifications exploded with live shares, messages of support, and praise for her calm authority. But before she could step away, a commotion erupted behind her. The hooded man from earlier had returned, trying to shove past the reporters toward Mills. Angela's instincts didn't fail her. She grabbed his arm and held him firmly. "Stop. This isn't about revenge," she warned. Suddenly, the man yanked free, shouting, and a piece of equipment from the camera rig swung dangerously toward Angela. The crowd gasped. Angela had to react in an instant to protect herself and the people around her. Angela pivoted just in time, her hand knocking the swinging camera rig aside. Sparks flew as it hit the pavement, shattering glass and scattering equipment. The hooded man stumbled but quickly regained his balance, lunging forward again. The crowd screamed, some running to safety, others frozen with their phones still recording every second. Officer Mills froze in the middle of the chaos, realizing he had no control over the situation. Angela's calm authority and quick reaction contrasted sharply with his panic. For the first time, he fully understood the consequences of his assumptions, not just the embarrassment, but the real danger his actions had caused. The backup officers moved swiftly, forming a protective circle around Angela and the crowd. One grabbed the hooded man and restrained him, while another called for additional support. Angela stayed composed, scanning the street for further threats. Her military training allowed her to process every movement, every potential danger. Bystanders murmured in awe, noting the general's poise under extreme stress. Even as chaos erupted, she remained a beacon of control and authority. Social media cameras continued streaming live, capturing Angela's heroic presence as millions watched across the nation. Then, just as the situation seemed to be stabilizing, a loud crash echoed from across the street. A delivery truck, seemingly distracted by the commotion, had struck a parked vehicle, sending debris flying dangerously close to the crowd. Angela's heart skipped. She acted instantly, shouting, "Move back! Everyone get clear!" People dove away, narrowly avoiding the wreckage. Sparks and shards of glass glinted in the streetlights as adrenaline surged through everyone nearby. Even as the crowd scrambled, Angela noticed the Pentagon line still active on her phone. She realized that while the immediate threat was contained, the fallout from this incident, public exposure, officer accountability, and media coverage, was just beginning. And then, a voice came through the chaos, a voice she recognized from the Pentagon. "General Hayes, we're sending a unit immediately. Stand by. We've got you." Angela's eyes narrowed. Relief washed over her, but she knew the real confrontation, justice, accountability, and truth, was only just starting. The backup unit from the Pentagon arrived within minutes, their vehicles pulling up with flashing lights and precision. Officers jumped out, forming a secure perimeter around Angela, the crowd, and even Officer Mills, whose face was pale with anxiety. For the first time, she felt a flicker of real safety, but she knew the situation was far from over. The hooded man was escorted away, still shouting, while Angela took a deep breath and spoke into her phone. "Thank you. I'm standing by." The voice on the other end assured her that a formal report would be filed immediately, and that her wrongful detainment would be documented for accountability. Mills was now trembling, surrounded by his colleagues and backed into a corner by cameras, bystanders, and the Pentagon unit. The realization hit him fully. His assumption had not only endangered Angela's life but also destroyed his credibility. He would face disciplinary actions, media scrutiny, and the permanent stain of public exposure. Angela turned to the crowd, now quieter, still recording on their phones. "Let this be a lesson," she said firmly. "Assumptions based on race or appearances are dangerous. Accountability matters, and the truth must always come first." The live streams continued, spreading nationwide. News networks picked up the story, "Black U.S. Army General Wrongfully Detained, One Call to the Pentagon Turns the Tables." Messages of support flooded in, and social media erupted with praise for Angela's composure and courage. Even as the adrenaline faded, Angela knew this night would have lasting consequences. Officer Mills would face formal investigations. The Pentagon had intervened, but the lesson was bigger. Society was watching, and justice had to be visible. Angela finally stepped back, the tension in her shoulders easing slightly. She had survived, proven her authority, and held her ground. Yet in the distance, she noticed drones and cameras still hovering, documenting every angle, every reaction. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to share and subscribe. Truth, accountability, and courage can change the world. The night ended with Angela walking away, her head held high, but she knew the story wasn't just about her. It was about exposing bias, demanding accountability, and proving that one call could indeed turn the tables.